Did you know that people with type 2 diabetes are twice as likely to develop heart disease? In today's video, we're diving into the connection between diabetes and heart health and how we can protect our heart by balancing our blood sugars. Hi, my name is Jeremiah Farias. I'm a functional registered dietitian, and I help adults suffering from blood sugar dysregulation issues, conditions like type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, using a bioenergetic approach to optimize cellular energy production. I hope you enjoy today's content. Before we get started, I want to let you know I'm looking for 50 people with type 2 diabetes that are willing to share how I can support you. I want to know what you need, what you're looking for when it comes to balancing your blood sugars and reversing your type 2 diabetes. That way I can create the content that is most valuable and applicable for you. If you or someone you know that has type 2 diabetes is interested, there will be a link in the description below. You can visit that, fill out some quick information, and then I'll reach out to you and schedule a free 15-minute to 30-minute Zoom call. I can't wait to speak to you and learn how I can support you. Okay, back to the content. We'll start by looking at how high blood sugar levels, oxidative stress, and inflammation caused by diabetes can then increase one's risk of heart disease. So high blood sugar levels seen in diabetes are going to increase oxidative stress and cause arterial stiffening. Arterial stiffening is where the artery's ability to dilate is impaired. And as you can imagine, impaired dilation capacity or ability of the arteries is going to increase blood pressure, which is another risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Additionally, high blood sugar levels also damage blood vessels and nerves that control the heart. Now, the same oxidative stress that's caused by oscillating blood sugar levels, which means a spike in blood sugar levels, also can cause and drive inflammation. And this inflammation increases heart disease risk in several ways. So first, inflammation increases LDL cholesterol levels because inflammation is going to decrease LDL receptor activity. LDL receptors are responsible for clearing or taking up LDL cholesterol or particles that are in the bloodstream. So when you have decreased activity of these receptors that's being driven by inflammation, you're going to have more cholesterol, LDL cholesterol in the blood. And the more LDL cholesterol that are in the blood, especially these smaller LDL particles, they can make their way into what's called the sub-endothelial space. You have an artery or a blood vessel, and below that, below the endothelium of the cells that line the blood vessels, you have the sub-endothelial space where this can start causing cardiovascular disease and the buildup of plaque. And this leads to the second way that inflammation can drive heart disease. Inflammation is going to cause the blood vessel wall to be permeable, which means it allows things into that subendothelial space. This includes LDL. Now, once LDL particles make their way into the subendothelial space, there's a higher likelihood that they're going to be oxidized and form what's called oxidized LDL. Now, we don't want this to happen because the oxidation of LDL may be the initial event in the formation of atherosclerotic plaque. So as you can see, experiencing spikes in blood sugar or chronically elevated blood sugar levels increases oxidative stress, damages the arteries, which drives inflammation and cardiovascular disease. But don't worry, right now we're going to dive into how we can support heart health and blood sugar control through our diet and lifestyle. We'll start with some nutrition essentials. We want to construct balanced meals, and this can be anywhere from 3 to 4 balanced meals that we're having throughout the day. This includes having a serving of high-quality protein. This can come from beef, lamb, bison, lean chicken or lean pork, fatty fish, whitefish, shellfish, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or hard cheeses for those that do okay with dairy. And in terms of how much protein, I typically recommend taking your body weight and timesing that by 0.72, and you're going to get the amount of grams of protein that you should aim for in a day. In this example, we can take someone who's 160 pounds, times that by 0.72, we're going to get about 115 grams of protein, and you want to evenly distribute that based on how many meals you're having. So in someone that's having 3 meals, this means about 38 grams of protein per meal from these high quality sources. And along with those high quality protein sources, we want to pair those with some whole food carbohydrate sources. This includes fruits, sweet potatoes, yams, butternut squash, acorn squash, delicata squash, or even white potatoes for some individuals. And believe it or not, getting enough carbohydrates in your diet can actually lower your cholesterol levels. This is because carbohydrates are very supportive of thyroid function. Thyroid plays a role in converting cholesterol into sex hormones. And so when you have low functioning thyroid, you're going to have less of that conversion occurring, leading to higher levels of cholesterol in the blood. And while we're on the topic of thyroid health, hypothyroidism can lead to heart disease as well. Hypothyroidism can result in decreased cardiac output, increased systemic vascular resistance, decreased arterial compliance, atherosclerosis, and lead to impaired cardiac muscle relaxation, decreased heart rate, and decreased stroke volume, which contributes to heart failure in those with hypothyroidism. And this is why I'm a fan of ensuring whole food carbohydrates are present in one's diet. And next we have healthy fats, which we want to ensure are present at a meal. I recommend prioritizing monounsaturated fats and saturated fats over polyunsaturated fats. This means using fats like tallow, ghee, butter, olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, even macadamia nut oil, or even foods that are fattier like the macadamia nuts, olives, and avocados. It may go without saying, but we want to avoid processed foods and fried foods, as these are going to contain not only trans fats, but excessive amounts of polyunsaturated fats, and that recommendation isn't very controversial. What is controversial is I also recommend being mindful of the quote-unquote healthy foods that are also rich in polyunsaturated fats. This means not eating too many nuts and seeds, fatty fish, fish oil, and even fatty cuts of chicken and pork. Now you may be wondering, why do I recommend limiting polyunsaturated fats in the diet? I mean, on the canola oil and corn oil bottle, it says heart healthy. And this is because the polyunsaturated rich fats and foods, they do in fact lower LDL levels in the blood. But we should ask, how do they do this? And I think you're going to find this very interesting. So polyunsaturated fats, especially in those with type 2 diabetes, can reduce the LDL particle size. Now, if you remember, a smaller LDL particle means it has a higher likelihood of entering that sub-endothelial space. Once it's in that sub-endothelial space, it can oxidize, and the oxidation of LDL particles can start the atherosclerotic process. Additionally, higher PUFA oils are going to increase oxidative stress, result in the damage or oxidation of LDL particles, increase the formation of products called lipid peroxides, and this is going to, again, damage the LDL particle, which means it's going to encourage the body to clear them from the blood, therefore lowering LDL cholesterol in the blood. And I argue we don't want to damage LDL particles or other cholesterol molecules like VLDL as a way of encouraging them to be cleared from the body and the blood. This is just one of the many ways that polyunsaturated fats can be a negative or have a negative impact on our health. And if you're interested in learning more about polyunsaturated fats and how they impact our health, you can check out this video here, and I will link to that in the description below. Next, we want to try to have a serving of vegetables at each meal as well. With vegetables, we want to incorporate and use vegetables that we tolerate from a digestive standpoint and don't result in any gastrointestinal symptoms like gas, bloating, etc. Vegetables are going to provide additional fiber and polyphenols, which have a positive effect in the gastrointestinal tract or the digestive tract, and because of their positive effect on the GI tract, they're going to positively affect the body systemically. And if you want to learn more about optimizing your digestion as it relates to blood sugar control, you can check out this video. The link will also be in the description. So by prioritizing these whole nutrient-dense foods at each meal, you're not only going to ensure that you're getting enough calories and macronutrients, but also enough micronutrients. Micronutrients like vitamins and minerals that are really important for cardiovascular health include vitamin K2, vitamin E, vitamin C, copper, and even another amino acid called glycine. Vitamin K2 ensures that the calcium that we get from our diet goes to our bones and teeth and stays out of soft tissues and arteries, so preventing soft tissue calcification. That's really important for cardiovascular disease. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble antioxidant. So I mentioned some of the issues with polyunsaturated fats is they're prone to oxidation, and when you have a variety of cells and their membranes made up of these polyunsaturated fats, it's inevitable for those fats in the cell membranes to oxidize, and vitamin E helps to counteract that and stop that chain reaction that can occur. Then you have vitamin C. Vitamin C is crucial for, yes, inflammation as a sort of water-soluble antioxidant, but vitamin C is also responsible for the synthesis of collagen. And so the vessels, the blood vessels, are made up of collagenous tissues, and without sufficient collagen production, which you need vitamin C, copper, and glycine, the amino acid, you're not going to have healthy tissues and healthy arteries, so you want to make sure we're getting plenty of those in our diet. Next, let's discuss the importance of movement and exercise for heart health and blood sugar control. First, resistance training is an incredible tool for balancing blood sugars. This is because resistance training is great for increasing muscle mass. The more muscle mass one has, the better that they can dispose or clear excess glucose from the bloodstream. This is going to reduce the likelihood of someone experiencing a spike in blood sugar, which those spikes in blood sugar can cause oxidative stress and damage the arteries. If you're not already doing resistance training, I would encourage you to ease into it, as it will make a major difference in your overall health. I created a free guide on getting started, which I'll link to in the description. And I also will link to this video right here that also walks you through getting started with resistance training and the benefits it provides. So resistance training is going to have an overall positive effect on how you control your blood sugars, because it's going to help you increase your muscle mass. The more muscle mass, better blood sugar control. Now, another tool I want to share with you though is the power of walking after a meal to control blood sugars and avoid spikes in blood sugar. One study had participants walk briskly for 30 minutes, and this led to a significant reduction in how high glucose levels went after a meal. The next tip that I want to share with you is doing some intense exercise 30 minutes before a meal to help avoid spikes in blood sugar. So this study had 3 groups, but we're going to be focusing on 2 of the groups because they noticed the most significant improvements in blood sugar control after a meal. The first group had participants perform 6 1-minute bouts of intense walking on a treadmill, and they had the treadmill set at a speed and an incline so that participants were at 90% of their max heart rate. They were resting 1 minute in between each minute bout. The next group also did 6 1-minute bouts of intense exercise, but they alternated between the walking and resistance training exercise using a resistance band. The group that alternated between using the resistance band and the walking also rested in between sets for 1 minute. And when they were using the resistance band, they were performing as many reps as they could during that 60-second time frame. Both of these groups, again, noticed a significant reduction in postprandial glucose levels or after meal glucose levels compared to the control group, where they just walked 30 minutes prior to a meal. While doing intentional exercise like resistance training is extremely valuable for our health, there is something to be said about not simply doing exercise for 30 to 60 minutes one time per day and then remaining sedentary throughout the entire day and sitting upwards of 13 and a half hours. This is because when you do that, when you only exercise for, let's say, 60 minutes in a day, but then remain sedentary, you can increase something called exercise resistance. Exercise resistance simply means that one does not experience the full extent of the benefits that exercise provides. The best way to avoid experiencing this exercise resistance is to ensure we're moving enough throughout the day. One study found that aiming for at least 8,500 steps per day was enough to avoid this exercise resistance. Another study found that doing exercise snacks every hour to break up sitting was also enough to avoid and overcome this exercise resistance. Specifically, with these exercise snacks, people did 5 4-second bouts of cycle sprinting. However, if you don't have access to a bicycle to do this, I would imagine every hour doing some sort of exercise like bodyweight squats, lunges, push-ups, and doing that for around 60 seconds, as many reps as you can do in 60 seconds for every hour that you're sitting will also be sufficient. So this is how a combination of resistance training and consistent low impact movement is crucial for improving blood sugar control and cardiovascular health. And just so I mention it, you should do any activity that you really enjoy. I have a specific bias towards resistance training because of the research highlighting its profound effects for our overall health and blood sugar control, but any movement is going to provide you with benefits. If you're someone who likes dancing, swimming, hiking, walking, biking, you should absolutely do those activities versus doing no activity at all. Next, we need to ensure we are managing stress and sleeping enough. Sleep issues are very stressful for the body, as sleep is a time for the body to repair and heal from the demands and the stressors that were placed on it or that it encountered during the day. The best way to start improving your sleep is by ensuring you have sleep hygiene practices in place. And some key concepts for optimizing sleep include eating enough calories, especially carbohydrates, along with other macronutrients, as the brain energy demands are nearly as high while someone is sleeping as they are when someone is awake. Another important concept is having a consistent wake and sleep time. The body does really well with routine, and this helps to strengthen and support one's circadian rhythm or that internal clock. Next thing is having a bedtime routine that limits blue light exposure, as blue light exposure can suppress melatonin production, and we want to be supporting and increasing or experiencing an increase in melatonin as we get closer to our bedtime. And so you can use blue light blocking glasses when you're using technology, use filters that block out the blue light. That can really make a difference in people getting to sleep and then having high quality sleep once they are in fact asleep. And getting early sunlight exposure also helps to prime the circadian rhythm. Getting activity and enough activity during the day is also really helpful. Limiting caffeine consumption in the afternoon, especially for those that are uniquely sensitive, can have a profound impact in sleep. And a couple more things: avoiding alcohol close to bedtime, and then keeping our sleep environment as dark and cool as possible. Lastly, as you can imagine, stress management practices are crucial for improving blood sugar health and cardiovascular health. Some of these practices include meditation, prayer, even breathing exercises. Breathing exercises can include something called box breathing, 4-7-8 breathing, and even diaphragmatic breathing. There are many apps that you can use that walk you through these different breathing exercises. For some people, yoga, dancing, listening to music. It's important that you take time during the day and even during the week to slow down, to decompress, and do activities that you enjoy as a part of your stress management and self-care routine. The beauty of finding activities that allow you to slow down is they're specific to the individual. And for some, this can be playing with your children, playing with your grandchildren, playing with your dog, walking your dog. And those that are even more creative and like to express themselves through art, maybe it's drawing, painting, and again, I mentioned before, listening to music while painting or doing another craft. When weather permits, trying to do as many of these activities outside provides an additional benefit. The last thing that I wanted to mention while we're on the topic of stress is the importance of not over-exercising. There are many studies which highlight those that over-exercise are going to increase their risk of developing cardiovascular disease. More of a good thing and too much of a good thing can easily turn into a bad thing. There's a U-shaped curve. We want to find that sweet spot where we're moving enough, stimulating our body enough, but not stressing our body too much. So now you know how type 2 diabetes can increase one's risk of developing heart disease or cardiovascular disease. However, we also reviewed the importance of balanced meals and sufficiently nourishing ourselves and using exercise, certain exercise techniques to better improve blood sugar control and avoid experiencing spikes in blood sugar. And we discussed how to optimize sleep along with various stress management practices that we can implement to lower our stress and have some sort of self-care routine. And as you can see, cardiovascular disease is more than just limiting salt, limiting your red meat or saturated fat intake. And I'd argue some of those recommendations are not the most helpful nor effective. And in the case of elevated cholesterol levels, there can be a lot more going on and a lot of other factors driving that increase in cholesterol levels more than someone's consumption of dietary cholesterol. And if you want a list of foods that I recommend prioritizing for those with type 2 diabetes, you can download my free macronutrient guide. I'll put the link for that in the description below. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I'm looking for 50 people with type 2 diabetes that would be willing to speak to me and share how I can support them in balancing their blood sugar and reversing their type 2 diabetes. If this is you or someone that you know, be sure to visit the link below and fill out some information, and then I'll reach out to you to schedule a free 15 to 30 minute call over Zoom. And be sure to check out this next video describing the link between hypertension and diabetes, as high blood pressure is another risk factor for cardiovascular disease. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to hit that like button, share it with someone that you believe would benefit from it, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. Take care, and I'll see you next week.